From Lagos, the nation's commercial capital, this is the News at 10. Live from Channels Television. Reporting tonight, Anne Nwaodo.
Hello and welcome. Tonight, Appeal Court in Abuja grants INEC's request to reconfigure the BVAS machines, also allows Labour Party presidential candidates Peter Obi and President-elect Bola Tinubu to inspect all materials used by INEC in the conduct of the presidential election. Federal High Court in Lagos orders INEC to directly and electronically upload the results of next Saturday's governorship and State House of Assembly elections in Lagos State from the polling units to the IREV. One person reported dead after fire gutted the spare parts markets in the Apapa area of Lagos. State Police Command says incident is being investigated as suspected arson.
On business news tonight, Central Bank releases guideline for operation of open banking in Nigeria in effort to deepen the financial system.
On sports news tonight, Scott Parker has been sacked as manager of Club Brugge after only 12 games following Tuesday night's 5-1 thrashing at Benfica.
And from Abuja, Nigerians joined the rest of the world in marking this year's International Women's Day. UN calls for more investment in the education of young women in Nigeria as a way of closing the gender digital gap in the country.
And in international news from London, United States officials say 2 of the 4 Americans kidnapped at gunpoint in Mexico last week are dead and 2 are alive and now back in the US.
A 3-man panel of the Presidential Election Petition Tribunal sitting at the Court of Appeal in Abuja has granted the request of the Independent National Electoral Commission INEC to reconfigure the bimodal voter accreditation system BVAS it used for the February 25, 2023 presidential election. The court, in a unanimous decision by the panel, led by Justice Joseph Ikeg, held that the preventing the electoral umpire from reconfiguring the BVAS would adversely affect the March 11th governorship and State Houses of Assembly elections. The court also ordered INEC to allow the president-elect, Senator Bola Ahmed Tinubu, and the candidates of the Labour Party, Mr. Peter Obi, access to sensitive materials used for the presidential election. The courtroom is filled to capacity as the candidates of the Labour Party and some officials of the party walk into the Court of Appeal, venue of the Presidential Election Petition Tribunal, to witness proceedings of the day. After a 2-hour delay, the court delivered its ruling on the 3 applications before it. First, it's dismissed objections by the Labour Party and its presidential candidate, Mr. Peter Obi, seeking to restrain INEC from reconfiguring the bimodal voter accreditation system, BVAS, used for the presidential election. In dismissing the objections by Labour Party and Mr. Obi, the court held that the backup files on the server cannot be lost and that restraining INEC will affect the forthcoming governorship elections. In another ruling, the tribunal upheld its earlier order directing INEC to allow Mr. Obi and Labour Party to inspect all the electoral materials used in the conduct of the presidential election, as the tribunal assures the applicants that information contained on INEC's BVAS machines cannot be lost or tampered with. The tribunal, in another unanimous decision, ordered INEC to grant the president-elect, Senator Bola Tinubu, access to sensitive materials used for the presidential election. The 3-man panel, led by Justice Joseph Ikeg, said it was satisfied that there was merit in Senator Tinubu's request to have access to the electoral materials to enable him defend his election.
Although counsels to INEC and Senator Tinubu were not available for comment, the lawyer to Mr. Obi believes the ruling of the tribunal is a step in the right direction.
INEC filed an application seeking to vary those orders, particularly as it relates to the server, Beaver's machine. Luckily for us today, the court refused to vary that order. That order is sustained and remains. In another ruling, the court was of the view that given the back-end server, which INEC undertook to provide to secure those materials, that order is partly sustained. Those initial orders are partly sustained. But in all, the good news is that the initial order of the court made on the 3rd of March, permitting Peter Gregory Obi and Labour Party to inspect the facilities of INEC, including the Beaver's machine, which they intend to use to prove their petition. Those orders are sustained.
As the tribunal prepares to commence sitting over the February 25 presidential election, the Labour Party and the All Progressives Congress are hopeful of victory.
Meanwhile, the People's Democratic Party presidential candidates in the 2023 presidential election, Mr. Atiku Abubakar, has inaugurated a legal team that will challenge the results of the poll in court on his behalf. A statement by the Atiku Media Office explains that the 19-person legal team is headed by Senior Advocate of Nigeria, Chief Joe Kiari Gadzama. Other members of the team are Chief Chris Uche, Mr. Paul Usoro, Tayo Jegede, Chief Michael Zekume, Mahmoud Magaji, Joe Abraham, Garba Tatengi, Chief Emeka Etiaba, among others, who are all senior advocates of Nigeria. While inaugurating the legal team as his campaign office in Abuja, Mr. Abubakar charged them to establish the claim of illegality in the February 25 elections. In the meantime, the Federal High Court in Lagos has ordered INEC to directly and electronically upload the results of the March 11 governorship and State House of Assembly elections in Lagos State from polling units to the IREV. Justice Peter Lifu granted the order while delivering judgment in a suit filed by the Labour Party and 41 others, in which they sought an order of mandamus to compel INEC to obey the Electoral Act and its guidelines for the conduct of the election. The judge held that the court possessed the jurisdiction to entertain the suit because it was commenced in accordance with the provisions of the law. He also held that the subject matter of the suit is not a pre-election issue because the relief sought by the applicants deal with the preparation of elections and not the conduct of the elections. He also noted that all applicants were trying to do is to compel the electoral body to comply with the Constitution, its regulations and guidelines, which it failed to do during the presidential and National Assembly elections held on February the 25th. Over 300 members-elect of the House of Representatives have received their certificates of return from INEC in Abuja. Although the majority of them, from 8 political parties, are first-time legislators, they do not think their inexperience will adversely affect the quality of lawmaking and oversight functions.
Sit down, please.
Members-elect of the lower legislative chamber in Nigeria's National Assembly gather at the International Conference Center to receive their certificates of return from the electoral umpire, INEC.
Jallo Husseini Mohammed.
It was no easy run for these men and women from the build-up to the actual elections on February 25. Today, the contestations has ended in their constituencies, and they are here surrounded by family and friends. The 10th Assembly will come on board in June 2023, but it will be a much diverse assembly with more political parties making inroads into the federal legislature compared to the previous assemblies. 8 political parties, including the PDP, APC, Labour Party and the NNPP, have won 326 seats out of the 360 seats in the lower chamber, making it one of the most diverse House of Representatives since 1999.
The quality of the legislation of an assembly is dependent on the all capacity that you have. Definitely, if there is no recycling of knowledge, it affects the performance of a parliament. But it doesn't mean that there won't be parliament. For us to have almost about 50 to 50-something members that are returning, I believe the reservoir of knowledge from those members that return back will be able to groom and train those newcomers that are coming on board. So there won't be any gap, there won't be any vacuum by the special grace of God.
I don't think the influx or the new intake, because some of them do not have legislative experience, it will affect the performances of the 10th Assembly. No, I don't think so. Since they are here and they are ready to learn, they will follow up the process, and they are also going to be part of the process. And I'm sure that we are going to have a robust 10th Assembly.
There is also a new breed of lawmakers coming into the Green Chamber who believe they have what it will take to make a difference when the 10th Assembly commences.
I know this is a bigger stage, but I think no one has the monopoly of knowledge. Anywhere you find yourself, you can key into the system.
Considering the fact that averagely Nigerians are very intelligent people, I expect us to have a very diverse and interesting 10th Assembly.
I've started politics since 1999 when I finished school. So I have been in the system for a long period of time. I was a local government chairman, so this is not a surprise for me.
So far, 326 seats out of the 360 seats in the House of Representatives have been filled with less than 2% female representation. Hopefully, that will change when INEC conducts supplementary elections in 33 federal constituencies to fill the remaining seats.
As we look towards the 10th Assembly, it is clear that it will be a politically diverse one. There are also permutations concerning how the leadership of the National Assembly will emerge, considering the number of opposition parties that will make up the 10th National Assembly. In the special report, our correspondent Terry Kumi takes a look at the composition of the 10th Assembly following the results declared so far by INEC.
To members elect.
The 10th National Assembly is beginning to take shape as 326 elected members of the House of Representatives and 101 senators have been presented with their certificates of return by the electoral umpire. As the electoral umpire prepares to conduct supplementary elections to fill up the remaining seats in both chambers, it is already clear how politically diverse the 10th Assembly will be. So far, both chambers will be made up of 8 political parties, namely the APC, PDP, LP, APGA, SDP, YPP, NNPP, and the ADC. The APC leads in both chambers with 57 seats in the Senate and 160 in the House. Of the 427 seats declared so far, only 15 are women, 12 in the House of Representatives and 3 in the Senate. These figures are not that different from that of the 9th Assembly, which had 7 female senators and 11 female members of the House.
Thank you, Honorable National Commissioner.
The youngest lawmaker is a member of the House at 27 years, while 70 years is the oldest, shared by 3 senators. Beyond the diversity of the 10th Assembly, the high turnover recorded is unprecedented. 62 out of the 101 senators and 222 out of the 326 members of the House will be making their first appearance in the National Assembly as federal lawmakers. That is, as it stands, 284 out of the 427 elected federal lawmakers are first-timers. Considering the diversity in the 10th National Assembly, which is expected to be inaugurated in June this year, selecting principal officers may turn out to be the most difficult selection process ever faced by any National Assembly in the country's history. Terry Ikumi, Channels Television News.
In part 2, after the break, One person reported dead after fire gutted a spare parts market in the Apapa area of Lagos. State Police Command says incident is being investigated as suspected arson. Please stay with us. Welcome back. If you've just joined us, you're watching the news at 10 live on Channels Television. A reminder of our top stories. Appeal Court in Abuja grants INEC's request to reconfigure the BVAS machines, also allows Labour Party presidential candidates Peter Obi and President-elect Bola Tinubu to inspect all materials used by INEC in the conduct of the presidential election. Federal High Court in Lagos orders INEC to directly and electronically upload the results of next Saturday's governorship and State House of Assembly elections in Lagos State from the polling units to the IREV. One person reported dead after fire gutted a spare parts market in the Apapa area of Lagos. Police Command says incident is being investigated as suspected arson. In international news from London, U.S. officials say 2 of the 4 Americans kidnapped at gunpoint in Mexico last week are dead and 2 are alive and back in the United States. Over the past 3 days, the federal government has been given its concluding part and address to the British court, and the final addresses are now being heard in the controversial matter involving the process and industrial development, the PNID, over a botched gas processing plant contract. The federal government, in its proceedings, has also cross-examined witnesses, including the PNID, leading to concluding addresses by the different parties in the matter for consideration and final determination by the British court. Nigeria has asked the London court to deliver judgments in its favor, seeking the court to overturn an arbitration award in favor of PNID, which has accrued interest estimated at about $11 billion. And right here in Lagos, the police command says that it is investigating the fire that broke out today at the Akere Motor Spare Parts Market in the Olodi-Apapa area of Lagos, which it says is a suspected arson. Although the fire was later put out by a combined team of officers from Tolu Police Division and the Lagos State Fire Service, a 65-year-old security guard lost his life in that incident. According to the command, the Commissioner of Police, Idowu Owonwa, also is now asking Lagosians to remain calm as the State Criminal Investigation Department has been directed to unravel the true circumstances surrounding that attack. Our correspondent Olu Phillips was at the scene of the fire and has more on this disaster.
What you see here, it's a heap of debris, typical of a scrapyard. But this isn't a scrapyard. What you see is the aftermath of few hours of fire raising down the livelihood of those who sell and make their trade here at the Akere area of the Kirikiri Road in Olodi-Apapa, Jeremy Falodu local government area. Over 100 of them do business here. And if you understand the business of motor parts, you know that some of these things and most of these things cost quite a bit. You can see lower arms, you can see steering racks, you can see discs, you can see all sorts of shock absorbers, all sorts of spare parts that once was business and trade, but now has become ruins, running into millions and millions of naira loss for these traders here. The fear was there, it was palpable. It started coming 2 weeks ago, according to them, and they reported this to the security agencies, especially to the police around here, and they assured them and reassured them that their security and their goods were safe. just between yesterday night and this morning. They came to their shop and it's all lying in ruins. The shops have been razed, business down. Some of them say they are not out and they hope to come out stronger. And they've got a very strong message for the Lagos State government. Step out, step onto the plate and make sure this is the last arsonist attack that will be witnessed in any market like this. And it's calling on the Lagos State governor especially to make sure that all of those that are responsible for this activity are brought to book and these guys can come back to their business and livelihood early enough. From Akere, here in Olodi-Apapa area, Olu Phillips, Channels Television News.
Meanwhile, the President, Muhammadu Buhari, has expressed deep sadness over the death of a 65-year-old security guard, the loss of personal property and means of livelihood of some Nigerians following that fire at Akere Spare Parts Market in Lagos. In a statement, President Muhammadu Buhari commiserated with the traders and their families. He commends the Lagos State Fire Service for responding to the incident and salvaging a nearby filling station with the 33,000 litre of PMS. The president sent his sympathy message after returning from Qatar, where he attended a conference for less developed countries. He also arrived in his hometown, Daura, where he is expected to vote in the state-level election on Saturday. Meanwhile, Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu of Lagos has ordered a probe into the fire that gutted the spare parts market in the Apapa area of Lagos. Governor Sanwo-Olu, who visited the market, says he is shocked by the incident. He also commiserated with the traders who lost their goods in that fire. Governor Sanwo-Olu has asked Lagosians to desist from attributing the unfortunate incident to any political party or its agents, adding that no one should attempt to make political gains out of this disaster. Earlier, the governorship candidate of the Labour Party, Gbadebo Rhodes-Fiver, today visited the shop owners whose properties were burnt during the fire mishap at the spare part markets in Akere area of Lagos. Mr. Rhodes-Fiver, who commiserated with the victims of the fire, also donated the sum of 15 million naira to assist them in their recovery effort. He gave assurances that the market will be rebuilt to international standard if elected as governor. Well, today is International Women's Day. It is here again, and this year today is focused on innovation and technology for gender equality. In this next report, our correspondent, Bukola Samuel Wemimo, reports on the essence of this year's celebration against the backdrop of experiences of speakers at this year's celebration in Lagos.
The International Women's Day is observed annually to celebrate women's rights and inspire people across both genders to act in the ongoing fight for gender equality. In 2022, 5 gender equality bills that, among other things, sought affirmative action for women in governance and political representation and 35% appointed positions suffered a huge setback as they were rejected by a male-dominated National Assembly. The 2023 edition of the BOI's International Women's Day helped to amplify these issues through these exalted platforms of expression. Leading the charge on this year's theme, Embrace Equity, is the Director General of the World Trade Organization, Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, who argues that equal opportunity for women in the political space is smart economics.
We must embrace equity, not just because it is the moral thing to do, but because it is smart economics. Reducing gender inequality boosts economic growth and mitigates income inequality.
And to inspire hope in their womenfolk, young women chief executives during the first panel discussion shared the highs and lows of their success stories, especially about how they navigate society's gender bias.
I matured to an age where it was time to probably give me like my inheritance, and my uncles looked at me and said, as a girl child, you're not entitled to any inheritance. So even the ones that were supposed to come to my dad, if he didn't have a male child, he didn't have anything to pass on to me.
Imagine, if you can, a world of equity.
During the second session, moderated by media entrepreneur Kadare Ahmed, there are more profound thoughts on the need to pave the way for equity in all spheres of life, as the vice chairman, Channels Media Group, shares the stage with other leading female business pioneers.
I have taken a look at what I've gone through to reach where I was before I became an entrepreneur, and intentionally, deliberately make sure that the women folk in our organizations really have what it takes to own their own. And I deliberately also make sure that all the issues that affect women, like issues of procreation, when it comes to a certain stage, what do you do? Do you leave procreation, raising a family? Do you give it up? We encourage them, yes, we can give you time off, go and make your babies, and at an appropriate time, come back.
It took 10 years before they decided to invite women to participate in the stock exchange, stockbroking profession.
And now we have a lot of women who are stockbrokers.
Thank God, thank God, thank God. We have about 60 women now.
In the part of Kaduna where our factory is based, women historically don't have access to their own plots of land unless they're widows or unless they inherited land and didn't have brothers to whom that land was passed. So, one of the first steps for us in terms of empowerment and creating that middle class was trying to figure out how do we extend the opportunity of becoming a contract farmer that can be highly profitable beyond the men in the community to the women in the community.
The Channels Media Group parades an array of phenomenal female staff who have over the years served the organization with excellence and dedication, some of whom are highlighted in this report. From the newsroom, Ronke Raji is a management staff who curiously joined the organization by chance after appearing on the 1999 Under-21 World Cup program as a guest analyst. Joke Rogers joined the company in the year 2000 as a youth copper and over the years rose through the ranks to head the presentation department. Maokwe Ogun Yusuf is one of Channels TV's leading news and programs presenters. She is known for her captivating presentation style. Away from the newsroom, Adiola Olumeyo is the Assistant General Counsel and Company Secretary, who also heads the Legal and Compliance Department. It's not all talk, as the Women's Day celebration is spiced with performances from leading artists. From Lagos, Bukola Samuel Wemimo for Channels Television News.
Still ahead on the news at 10. Central Bank of Nigeria releases guideline for operation of open banking in Nigeria in an effort to deepen the financial system. And that's in business news. Join us again. Women have come a long way in Nigeria since the first Women's Day was celebrated 112 years ago in the United States of America. And that's according to the Executive Director, Women in Management, Business and Public Service, WIMBIS, Hansatu Adegbite, who told Channels Television that more needs to be done.
I can say even in politics, even though the numbers are low, we have made significant progress in at least now seeing a number of senators and members of the House of Representatives. We're not there yet, but the journey has started. I will tell you the truth that for me, I think we need to have more women in politics and in senior management positions on boards so that they can help to put in policies that will work to the advantage of women in the nation. There is nothing that happens easy. And as we can see even from the numbers, when you have less than 3% of decision makers that are making decisions on behalf of over 100 million women, there is no way you would expect that women will be a top burner for their policies. If you look at the 2023 budget, for example, we have less than 1% of that budget going to women's economic empowerment, for example, based on research from the Development Research Projects Center. I think it's going to get to a stage where women will now have to unite. You see, what is you talked about a gap and a bridge between the elites and maybe the women in the rural areas. And I think, to be honest with you, that gap is why we're still paying this price, because we know that a lot of women vote in most of these elections. We have seen it from INEC statistics that women and youth constitute the highest number of voters in these elections. And so what I am going to recommend is that we need to bridge that gap through interaction and a number of interventions between the women in the rural and the elite space, where we are all on the same page. Because I think we're going to get to a stage that we will need to sit together and be able to decide who will represent us. And any man that is running or any other person that is running without a woman on their ticket are the things that we will begin to run from.
We head to our Abuja studios now, where Gloria Mezoke is standing by to give us more on the news at 10. Hello, Gloria, and happy International Women's Day.
Same to you. Thank you, Anne. Now, staying with International Women's Day, there is need to invest more in the education of young women in Nigeria as a way of closing the gender digital gap in the country. Well, this is contained in the message of the United Nations resident and humanitarian coordinator in Nigeria, Mr. Matthias Schmale, in his message to mark the 2023 International Women's Day. Mr. Schmale says closing the gap will help achieve a better Nigeria and a better world for all.
Closing the digital gender divide will be smart economics for Nigeria and for its development aspirations. Innovations and technology should be a major part of the services provided by the government of Nigeria. The country's development partners, including us in the UN, must help close the digital gender gap and improve the lives of Nigerian women and girls. One of the areas we should invest in is rural women's access to mobile phones. Having opportunities for mobile transfers improves their opportunities to sell agricultural products. Mobile phone access enhances women's economic productivity and facilitates direct market access. In parts of Nigeria where there is the additional challenge of insecurity, mobile phones are also essential for women and girls' safety. A second area worthy of investment is in digital platforms for women entrepreneurs. These platforms are key to bridging the gender gap in business and the economy. Through such digital platforms and apps, women entrepreneurs can reach more customers, and they can learn more about their businesses through live feedback.
Well, more on International Women's Day. This year's celebration is focused on digital innovation and technology for gender equality. In this next report, our correspondent Kayla Megwa examines these factors and some of the successes Nigerian women have recorded in spite of daunting challenges.
Nigerian female ambassadors to several countries have gathered here at the Rotunda Hall of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs to commemorate International Women's Day, a testament to the resilient spirit of the Nigerian woman. Poor representation of women, especially in politics, has been an issue decried by many for a group that makes up 51% of Nigeria's voting population. At the just concluded presidential and parliamentary elections, of the 15,336 candidates, only 1,524 are women. Women make up a paltry 4.1% of Nigeria's parliament. Nigeria has no female state governors and are still being installed on their demands for 35% affirmative action. We tried to find out what the chairperson of Nigeria's Women Ambassadors makes of the situation and what she expects from the next administration.
Affirmative action is like 33–35%. The Nigerian government that's going to take over should be looking at 40% of women in governance, because the women are very empathic people.
Politics or not, Nigerian women have defied the odds in many areas to excel in their various fields of endeavor. Amina Mohammed is the first Nigerian woman to rise to the post of Deputy United Nations Secretary General. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala is the first Nigerian to be Director General of the World Trade Organization. The literary works and activism of Chimamanda Adichie have earned her worldwide recognition, inspiring young women around the world and earning her a MacArthur Genius Grant, as well as the Penn Printer Prize. Women in Nigeria have in recent years chosen to take the bull by the horns, turning their lives around in a harsh economic climate and providing employment in their communities. For this female inventor and green architect, the road has been rough, and there's so much more the government can do to make things easier for women in business.
Provide grants, loans that are interest-free and easily accessible, and also other incentives for women in this industry. Then they should also provide awareness to people on waste management, and also they should be able to provide laws that will be favorable to women in this industry.
Every woman anywhere in the world is built with some ability to forge on when things are toughest. The Nigerian woman in particular has had to deal with daunting challenges in this harsh economic climate, especially in the digital space. The Nigerian woman has had to deal with cultural, societal, religious, and financial constraints. So what does the Nigerian woman ask of the government this International Women's Day? Two things. One, the political will to ensure that she makes it in this world. And finally, the enabling environment to do so. Kayla Magwa, Channels Television News.
In other stories, the National Agency for Science and Engineering Infrastructure, NASENI, has signed a memorandum of understanding with the Nigerian Navy to partner in the areas of security engineering equipment and training of officers in the Nigerian Navy. Speaking at a ceremony today in Abuja, the Executive Vice Chairman of NASENI, Mr. Mohammed Haruna, who led the management team of the agency to the naval headquarters, also noted that the partnership will positively impact several sectors like security and oil and gas.
Senior officers of the Nigerian Navy, as well as senior members of staff of the National Agency for Science and Engineering Infrastructure, NASENI, are gathered here to cement a partnership that will lead to capacity building for officers and joint research in equipment and engineering projects.
God bless us all, and as you say...
Partnerships of this kind have benefited the Navy in the discharge of its responsibility of policing the country's coastal territory. The Naval Chief says the results have begun to come in.
Coordinating into the listing of Nigeria from list of International Maritime Bureau, piracy-prone countries in the world, which ultimately reduced high insurance premiums, which is known as piracy-prone countries in the world, which ultimately reduced high insurance premium, which is known as risk premium. And the risk premium is usually factored into shipping costs due to prevalence of piracy incidences around any part of the world that is littoral. These high costs are passed on the consumers, you and I, to enable shipping companies to recoup their losses, as it were.
The Executive Vice Chairman of NASENI, Mr. Mohammed Haruna, believes the partnership will benefit the country's economy and security.
The most important component of this working together with the Nigerian Navy is to save the country foreign exchange and produce what is needed locally, and to enhance security, because when we develop our equipment locally, it is in itself security.
Done with the rhetorics, both parties put pen to paper to seal the commitment to working together that should produce visible results in local content in the security sector in Nigeria.
Well, that's it from the nation's capital. It's over now to Jeffrey in Lagos for business news.
Banking so easy, so simple. Dial *894# now to experience it. You first, First Bank.
Thanks, Gloria, and welcome to Business News. The central bank has released guidelines for the operation of open banking in the country that will enable participants and small businesses to harness the opportunities in the financial sector globally. According to the CBN, the regulatory framework established principles for data sharing across the banking and payment system to promote innovation and broaden the range of financial products and services available to bank customers. And that's the closing gong on the Nigerian Stock Exchange, rung by the co-president of Women Execs on Board, Rosa Bichard, to commemorate this year's edition of International Women's Day. At the event, Mrs. Bichard noted that while the NGX has made progress in embracing gender equality, much still needs to be done to ensure adequate representation of women in the capital market. And staying with the capital market, where some domestic stocks, especially Dangote Cement and some other stocks, lifted the all-share index. John Mekwa has details.
Thank you so much. Welcome to the stock market report. 108 billion naira was gained at the NGX at the close of midweek trade. And of course, the all-share index shows that picture. It's up 0.35%. And look here, we have 55. Yeah, we've been having that, but guess what? We're getting really close to 55,804.14. That's for the all-share index, and the market cap here telling us about that 108 billion that we gained. This has made the bull very, very happy. And the market mover, that's 108 billion naira we're talking about. Most of the transaction came from MTN Nigeria. You know, that's the second most capitalized and market mover of the NGX. 149 million naira is what it contributed to the market today. So 108 billion naira, you have parts of that coming from MTN. And the activity chart is mixed today, recovered a bit, but we have a very good number with the value there at 3.57 billion naira, while the volume and the deals has dropped. But, well, I guess it's not about the number of deals, but the weight of those deals. That's why we see it in the value. But it's a positive market. The bull is back, and we'll see if that is sustained tomorrow. That's the stock market report. I'm John Mekwa is back to you.
Now let's find out how some of the world's leading stock markets ended Wednesday's trading session. That's it on business. I'm Jeffrey Uzong is back to Anne, and happy International Women's Day, Anne.
Banking so easy, so simple. Dial *894# now to experience it. You first, First Bank.
Thanks a lot, Jeffrey. The U.S. government has launched an investigation into the Memphis Police Department over the death of Tyree Nichols. Mr. Nichols, a 29-year-old black man, died in January, 3 days after being pulled over and bitten by police. Here's Simon Pusey for more international news and around the world in 5.
Good evening and welcome to the Channel's studios here in London with your international news around the world in 5. U.S. officials say 2 of the 4 Americans kidnapped at gunpoint in Mexico last week are dead, and 2 are alive and now back in the United States. 4 U.S. citizens were kidnapped by armed men on March the 3rd while driving into the city of Matamoros in the northeastern state of Tamaulipas in Mexico, across the border from Texas. Relatives told U.S. media they had traveled there for cosmetic surgery. Mexican police officers here guarding the house where the 4 U.S. nationals were found. One man, named only as Jose N., has been arrested. White House National Security Council spokesman John Kirby said, "We offer our deepest condolences to the friends and families of those who were killed."
The 2 survivors have since been repatriated back to the United States. That occurred with the assistance of our Mexican partners, with the assistance of our officials in Mexico. We are in the process of working to repatriate the remains of the 2 Americans who were killed in this incident.
Protesters have clashed with police in Georgia's capital, Tbilisi, after Parliament backed a controversial draft law which critics say limits press freedom and suppresses civil society. Riot police used water cannon and pepper spray to disperse the crowds outside the building. Some protesters were seen falling on the ground and coughing, while others waved EU and Georgian flags. The government says several policemen were hurt and police gear was damaged. There has been widespread international condemnation of the bill, which would require non-governmental organisations and independent media to declare themselves as foreign agents if they receive more than 20% of their funding from abroad. It's emerged that the Fox News host Tucker Carlson said in a text message after the 2020 election that he passionately hated Donald Trump. That's according to new court filings. Mr. Carlson's message to a colleague in January 2021 emerged as part of a defamation lawsuit by Dominion Voting Systems against Fox News. Fox News denies defamation and says on-air comments were taken out of context. The latest filings in the case suggest Mr. Carlson expressed his dislike of the outgoing US president 2 days before Trump supporters stormed the US Capitol. UK Prime Minister Rishi Sunak has defended the new law on illegal migration, saying it will help achieve a priority for the British people. Speaking in the House of Commons, he said reducing the number of small boats crossing the Channel illegally was the #1 priority for the British people.
Stopping the boats, Mr. Speaker, stopping the boats is not just my priority, it is the people's priority. But his position on this is clear. He wanted to, in his words, scrap the Rwanda deal. He voted against measures to deport foreign criminals, Mr. Speaker, and he even argued against deportation flights. Well, and we know why, because on this matter, he talked about his legal background. He's just another lefty lawyer standing in our way.
However, the leader of the opposition, Sir Keir Starmer, said his plans wouldn't work and would make an already bad problem even worse. And ceremonies and celebrations around the world have been held to mark International Women's Day. Pope Francis referred to Women's Day at the end of his weekly audience in St. Peter's Square, asking the crowd for an applause for all women because they deserve it. Russian President Vladimir Putin presented state awards to women and paid special attention to those women serving in Ukraine. And fittingly, the ECB President, Christine Lagarde, said less testosterone and a smaller ego help during times of geopolitical tensions.
They tend to have the qualities that are especially beneficial in times of geopolitical tensions. One study in particular finds that they are especially good at thinking holistically, managing complexity, and embracing cooperation, attributes that are ideal when it comes to trade negotiations. I have my way of putting it out. Forgive me. Fewer testosterone, smaller ego. That helps.
And that's your international news around the world in 5. Now back to the channel's studios in Lagos.
Many thanks, Simon. FC Bayern have joined Benfica and Chelsea in the last 8 of the UEFA Champions League following a 1-0 win against Paris Saint-Germain at the Allianz Arena. Well, actually, it ended 2-0 for the Parisians in that game. And in the other game, of course, AC Milan seems to be heading to the next stage of the competition by holding out Tottenham Hotspur in London. And Belgian side Club Brugge have sacked the Englishman Scott Parker after they were thrashed 7-1 on aggregate by Benfica in the Champions League last 16 on Tuesday. While the coach, Parker, the former Fulham and Bournemouth manager, was a surprise hire on December the 31st, but lasted just 12 games at the Club Brugge. And that's a wrap on Sports News.
Thank you, Aya. Before we go, the Independent National Electoral Commission has advised correspondents covering the commission to wait for official statement regarding the news making the rounds that it has postponed the governorship and state assembly elections. We'll keep you updated on any further development. And the main news again. The appeal court in Abuja today granted INEC's request to reconfigure the BVAS machines. The court likewise allowed Labour Party presidential candidates Peter Obi and President-elect Bola Tinubu to inspect all materials used by INEC in the conduct of the presidential election. And that's the news at 10 tonight. Thank you for watching. I'm Anne Nwawadu. Good night and stay safe.